Sarah Martinez had always been different from other girls in her small Texas town. While her classmates played with dolls, she climbed trees and built forts. While they worried about makeup and boys, she studied military history and practiced swimming in the local lake for hours every day. Her father, a retired Marine, noticed her unusual determination early on. "That girl has warrior blood," he would tell his wife after watching Sarah do push-ups in their backyard at age 12. "She's going to do something special someday." Sarah's mother worried constantly. Military life was hard enough for men, she argued. Why would any woman choose such a brutal path? But Sarah had already made up her mind. She had read every book about special forces operations she could find. She knew the statistics, the dropout rates, the physical demands. None of it scared her. In high school, Sarah joined every sports team that would accept her. Football was off limits, but she dominated in swimming, track, and wrestling. Her coaches were amazed by her mental toughness. During a particularly brutal wrestling practice, she dislocated her shoulder but finished the match anyway. The doctor said most people would have quit from the pain. "Pain is temporary," Sarah told the local newspaper reporter who interviewed her after she won the state wrestling championship. "Quitting lasts forever." Her guidance counselor tried to steer her toward traditional female careers: teaching, nursing, social work. Sarah listened politely, then signed up for advanced physics and calculus instead. She knew SEALs needed technical knowledge as much as physical strength. College brought new challenges. Sarah studied exercise science while training like a professional athlete. She woke up at 4 every morning to run 5 miles, then hit the weight room before classes. Her roommates thought she was crazy. They stayed up late partying while Sarah went to bed early and studied military tactics. "You know women can't be SEALs, right?" her boyfriend Mark said one evening as he watched her do pull-ups in their dorm room. "It's not allowed." Sarah dropped from the bar and looked at him seriously. "Laws change. Requirements change. I'll be ready when they do." Mark laughed and shook his head. He thought it was just a phase, like when she wanted to be an astronaut in middle school. But this was different. Sarah had studied every aspect of SEAL training. She knew about Hell Week, the impossible physical standards, the mental torture designed to break even the strongest candidates. Her professors were supportive but realistic. Dr. Johnson, her exercise physiology instructor, helped her design training programs that would prepare her for the demands of special operations. They worked together on building not just strength and endurance, but the type of mental resilience that couldn't be taught from textbooks. "The physical part is only half the battle," Dr. Johnson explained during one of their private sessions. "Your mind has to be stronger than your body. When your muscles give out, when you can't breathe, when every instinct tells you to quit, something deeper has to take over." Sarah nodded and added more weight to the bar. She understood completely. After graduation, Sarah enlisted in the Navy and excelled in basic training. Her drill instructors were tough on everyone, but they seemed especially determined to break her spirit. They made her carry heavier packs, do extra exercises, and endure longer inspections. Instead of complaining, Sarah thanked them for the additional challenge. "You think you're special?" Petty Officer Williams screamed in her face during a particularly brutal training exercise. "You think the Navy needs to change for you?" Sarah stood at attention, sweat dripping down her face. "No, Petty Officer. I think I need to change for the Navy." The answer surprised him. Most recruits either broke down or got angry. Sarah just absorbed the pressure and used it to fuel her determination. Her fellow sailors respected her work ethic but questioned her goals. During late-night conversations in the barracks, they would ask why she wanted to put herself through SEAL training when she already had a successful Navy career ahead of her. "Because it's the hardest thing I can do," Sarah explained simply. "If I can do the hardest thing, everything else becomes easier." Some of her male colleagues felt threatened by her ambitions. They worried that if women were allowed in special forces, standards would be lowered to accommodate them. Sarah understood their concerns but believed she could prove them wrong through her actions. "I don't want special treatment," she told anyone who would listen. I want the same treatment. The same standards, the same tests, the same expectations. When news broke that the Pentagon was considering allowing women in combat roles, including special operations, Sarah knew her moment was approaching. She had spent years preparing her body and mind for this opportunity. Now she just had to wait for the door to open. The announcement came on a Tuesday morning in January. Women would be allowed to attempt SEAL training, provided they met all existing physical and mental standards. No accommodations would be made. No standards would be lowered. It would be exactly the same brutal process that had broken thousands of men over the decades. Sarah was in the ship's gym when she heard the news. She had just finished a 2-hour workout and was stretching when her friend Lisa burst through the doors. Sarah! Did you hear? They're letting women try for the SEALs. Sarah stood up slowly, her heart pounding. After years of preparation, the impossible had become possible. When do applications open? She asked quietly. Next month. But, Sarah, you know what this means, right? You'll be one of the first. Everyone will be watching. The pressure will be incredible. Sarah looked out the small porthole at the ocean beyond. Somewhere out there, other women were probably having the same conversation, facing the same decision. Some would apply out of curiosity. Others would want to make a political statement. But Sarah had a different motivation entirely. She had trained for this moment her entire life. Not because she wanted to prove women could do anything men could do, but because she genuinely believed she was meant to be a SEAL. The mission, the brotherhood, the commitment to excellence, it all called to something deep inside her that she couldn't ignore. Let them watch, she said finally. Let them judge. I know what I'm capable of. That night, Sarah called her parents. Her father was proud but worried. Her mother was terrified but supportive. They had watched their daughter push herself beyond normal limits for years. They knew she wouldn't give up easily. Just promise me you'll come home, her mother said through tears. Whatever happens, promise me you'll come home. Sarah stared out at the dark ocean and made a promise she hoped she could keep. I'll come home, Mom. But I'm going to be different when I do. The application process was extensive. Physical fitness tests, psychological evaluations, medical examinations, and endless paperwork. Sarah passed every requirement with room to spare. Her scores were higher than many of the male candidates, but she knew that wouldn't matter once training began. SEAL instructors didn't care about your test scores or your motivation. They cared about one thing: could you complete the mission when everything went wrong and everyone was depending on you? 3 weeks before training began, Sarah received a call from a reporter who had heard about her application. How does it feel to be breaking barriers? The woman asked. What message do you want to send to young girls who might be watching? Sarah thought carefully before answering. She knew her words would be scrutinized and analyzed. I'm not trying to break barriers or send messages, she said. I'm trying to become the best operator I can be. If that inspires someone else, great. But my focus is on the mission, not the politics. The reporter seemed disappointed by the answer, but Sarah didn't care. She had learned long ago that other people's opinions couldn't help her through Hell Week. Only her own determination could do that. As the start date approached, Sarah's training intensified. She swam in freezing water, carried heavy logs for miles, and practiced combat scenarios until muscle memory took over. Her body was as ready as it could be. Her mind was focused and clear. But late at night, alone in her bunk, doubt sometimes crept in. What if she wasn't strong enough? What if the instructors were right and women simply couldn't handle the demands? What if she became the example that proved women didn't belong in special operations? Sarah pushed those thoughts away and focused on her breathing. Doubt was just another enemy to defeat. Fear was just another obstacle to overcome. She had come too far to let uncertainty stop her now. The night before she left for Coronado, Sarah stood on the ship's deck and looked up at the stars. Tomorrow would begin the hardest challenge of her life. Many would want her to fail. Some would actively try to break her. But she had something they couldn't take away. She had the absolute certainty that she belonged there, regardless of what anyone else believed. That conviction would have to be enough to carry her through whatever came next. The bus ride to Naval Amphibious Base Coronado was silent except for the engine noise and nervous breathing of 23 candidates. Sarah sat in the back, watching the California landscape roll past. She was the only woman among the group, but that fact had stopped surprising her years ago. Most of the men avoided eye contact. A few stared openly, trying to size her up. One candidate, a tall guy with a thick southern accent named Brad, had made several comments during their brief orientation about women not belonging in combat. Sarah ignored him completely. "You know this isn't regular Navy training, right?" Brad said as they approached the base. "This is the real deal. No participation trophies." Sarah looked up from the book she was reading about advanced underwater demolition techniques. "Thanks for the warning," she said calmly, then returned to her reading. The basic training compound looked exactly like she had imagined. Spartan buildings, obstacle courses, and everywhere the smell of salt water and sweat. Instructors in brown t-shirts watched the new arrivals with expressions that mixed boredom with barely contained aggression. Instructor Chief Petty Officer Mike Torres had been breaking SEAL candidates for 15 years. He had seen every type of person attempt the program: college athletes, former Marines, Olympic swimmers, Navy veterans. Most quit within the first week. Some lasted longer but eventually found their breaking point. When he saw Sarah step off the bus, Torres felt a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. The Navy had made it clear that female candidates would receive no special treatment, but he wondered if political pressure might eventually force compromises. He had spent too many years maintaining the standards that kept SEALs alive in combat to let anything weaken the program now. "Listen up!" Torres shouted as the candidates assembled in formation. "For the next 6 months, your previous life doesn't exist. Your accomplishments don't matter. Your excuses won't be heard. You have one job: prove you deserve to be here." He walked slowly down the line, making eye contact with each candidate. When he reached Sarah, he paused slightly. "Some of you think you're making history," he continued without breaking his stare. "You're not. You're attempting to join a brotherhood built on blood, sacrifice, and absolute commitment to excellence. History will judge whether you measure up." Sarah met his gaze steadily. She understood the message. No one was going to help her succeed, and many would prefer to see her fail. That was fine. She had prepared for exactly this scenario. The first physical test was designed to identify candidates who had lied about their fitness levels. A 4-mile run in combat boots, followed by swimming, pull-ups, push-ups, and sit-ups. Sarah finished the run in the middle of the pack, which was exactly where she wanted to be. Too fast would attract unwanted attention. Too slow would confirm doubts about her capabilities. During the swimming portion, Sarah's years of training paid off. She moved through the water with efficient strokes, breathing easily while some of the larger candidates struggled with buoyancy and technique. Brad, who had been talking tough on the bus, finished nearly 2 minutes behind her. "Not bad for a warm-up," said Danny Chen, a former Marine who finished just ahead of Sarah in the run. "But wait until things get interesting." Sarah nodded and smiled. She liked Danny immediately. He treated her like any other candidate, which was all she wanted. The first real test came during water confidence training. Candidates had to swim underwater while instructors tried to disorient and panic them. They tied knots in breathing apparatus, pulled off masks, and created scenarios designed to trigger claustrophobic responses. Sarah watched the first few candidates go through the exercise. 2 quit immediately after experiencing what instructors called controlled drowning. They panicked underwater and signaled for emergency extraction. Their SEAL dreams ended right there in the training pool. When Sarah's turn came, she forced herself to remain calm as the instructor wrapped the breathing tube around her neck and pulled her to the bottom of the pool. Her lungs burned and her vision started to blur, but she methodically worked to untangle the equipment while maintaining control of her breathing. "That's how it's done," Instructor Torres said when Sarah surfaced after successfully completing the exercise. "No panic, just problem solving." Several male candidates had failed the same test, but Sarah noticed that her success seemed to make some of them more determined to prove themselves. Competition was natural in military training, but she sensed an extra edge when the men competed directly against her. During hand-to-hand combat training, the instructors paired Sarah with increasingly challenging opponents. She was smaller than most of the men, but years of wrestling had taught her to use leverage and technique to overcome size disadvantages. "Size matters in a fight," Instructor Williams explained to the class after Sarah had successfully defended against a much larger opponent. "But technique, aggression, and mental toughness matter more. The enemy won't care about your gender, your background, or your feelings. They'll try to kill you. Your job is to kill them first." Sarah absorbed every lesson, pushed through every challenge, and refused to show weakness even when her body screamed for rest. During the infamous surf torture, where candidates lay in freezing ocean waves for hours, she focused on breathing techniques and mental visualization to manage the pain. Some candidates quit during surf torture. Others made it through but were clearly broken by the experience. Sarah emerged from the water with blue lips and shaking hands, but her eyes remained focused and determined. "How are you holding up?" Danny asked during their brief rest period. "I'm good," Sarah replied, though every muscle in her body ached. "Just getting warmed up." 3 weeks into training, the first major controversy occurred. During a particularly brutal obstacle course run, Sarah posted the fastest time of the day. Some candidates congratulated her. Others whispered that the course must have been made easier or that she had received help. Brad was the most vocal critic. "There's no way she ran that course faster than everyone else," he complained to other candidates. "Something's not right." The rumors reached Instructor Torres, who decided to address them directly. The next morning, he announced that Sarah would run the obstacle course again, by herself, with multiple instructors timing and observing every movement. Sarah felt the pressure of having every eye focused on her performance. One mistake would confirm every doubt about her abilities. Success would only prove what she already knew to be true. She attacked the course with controlled aggression, moving smoothly from obstacle to obstacle while maintaining perfect technique. When she finished, her time was actually 2 seconds faster than her previous run. Torres announced the result to the assembled candidates. "Anyone who questions the validity of these tests is questioning the integrity of this program," he said in a voice that carried clear warning. "I won't tolerate that from anyone." Brad's face reddened, but he said nothing. Several other candidates looked embarrassed. Sarah simply nodded and prepared for the next evolution. The incident marked a turning point in how the other candidates treated her. Most realized she was earning her place through performance, not politics. A core group began to accept her as a legitimate teammate, while a smaller faction remained resentful. During week 4, the infamous Hell Week began. 5.5 days of continuous training with less than 4 hours of sleep total. This was where most candidates broke. The physical challenges were extreme, but the mental torture was designed to find each person's breaking point and push them beyond it. Sarah had prepared for Hell Week her entire life. She had studied accounts from former SEALs, practiced sleep deprivation, and trained her mind to function under extreme stress. But nothing could fully prepare someone for the reality of being pushed to complete physical and mental exhaustion. The first night involved carrying heavy boats over sand dunes while instructors used bullhorns and hoses to create sensory overload. Sarah's team worked together efficiently, but she could see the stress breaking down some of her teammates. "This is insane," one candidate gasped during a brief rest. "How can they expect us to keep going?" Sarah looked at him with genuine confusion. "This is what we signed up for," she said. "This is why most people can't do this job." By the second day, candidates were making serious mental mistakes from exhaustion. Several walked up to the bell that signified quitting and rang it without saying a word. Each time someone quit, Sarah felt a mixture of sadness and determination. During one particularly brutal beach evolution, Sarah's boat crew had to carry their inflatable boat while crawling through sand and surf. The other crews were struggling, but Sarah's leadership and technical knowledge helped her team maintain better efficiency. "Martinez knows what she's doing," one of her teammates said to instructor Torres during a brief break. "She's keeping us focused when we want to give up." Torres nodded but said nothing. He had been watching Sarah carefully throughout Hell Week. Her physical performance was solid, but, more importantly, she was demonstrating the mental toughness and leadership qualities that separated SEALs from other special operators. On the fourth night, Brad finally rang out. He had been struggling for days, making mistakes and slowing down his team. When he walked up to the bell, Sarah felt no satisfaction. She understood how much courage it took to quit when your body and mind demanded rest. "Good luck," Brad said to her as he gathered his equipment. "I hope you make it." Sarah shook his hand. "Thank you. I respect you for trying." The final day of Hell Week was a blur of exhaustion, pain, and determination. Sarah's vision was blurry from lack of sleep, her hands were raw from rope burns, and every muscle in her body felt like it was on fire. But her mind remained clear and focused on the mission. When instructor Torres finally announced that Hell Week was over, only 12 candidates remained from the original 23. Sarah was among them, standing at attention despite being barely able to remain upright. "You have survived Hell Week," Torres announced. But this was just the beginning. "The real training starts now." Sarah smiled through her exhaustion. She had passed the test that broke most candidates. But, more importantly, she had proven to herself and others that she belonged there not because rules had changed, but because she had what it took to be a SEAL. That night, as she finally got her first real sleep in almost a week, Sarah dreamed about the missions that lay ahead. She was no longer the woman trying to prove she belonged. She was becoming the operator she had always known she could be. The months following Hell Week brought new challenges that tested different aspects of Sarah's capabilities. Advanced weapons training, explosive ordnance disposal, advanced medical procedures, and complex tactical scenarios pushed the remaining candidates to their limits in ways that pure physical fitness couldn't address. Sarah excelled in the technical aspects of SEAL training. Her college education in exercise science had given her a strong foundation in anatomy and physiology, which proved valuable during combat medical training. When the instructor demonstrated field surgery techniques on a wounded mannequin, Sarah absorbed every detail and asked intelligent questions that impressed her teachers. "Martinez understands that being a SEAL isn't just about being tough," Instructor Rodriguez explained to his colleague after watching Sarah perform a flawless field amputation simulation. "She gets the intellectual demands of this job." The weapons training phase revealed another strength. Sarah had grown up hunting with her father and had excellent natural marksmanship skills. During sniper training, she consistently posted scores in the top 3 among all candidates. Her smaller frame actually provided advantages in concealment and patience that larger operators sometimes lacked. Danny Chen, who had become one of her closest friends in the program, watched Sarah maintain perfect position during a 12-hour surveillance exercise while other candidates struggled with muscle cramps and restlessness. "How do you stay so still?" he whispered during a brief communication window. "I pretend I'm hunting deer with my dad," Sarah replied quietly. "You learn patience when you're waiting for the perfect shot." But technical skills and physical abilities were only part of the evaluation process. The instructors were constantly assessing leadership potential, decision-making under pressure, and the ability to function as part of a team in life-or-death situations. During a complex nighttime navigation exercise, Sarah's team became disoriented in dense fog while trying to reach a rendezvous point. The designated team leader, a former Army Ranger named Mike Stevens, was struggling with the compass readings and making navigation errors that were leading them further off course. Sarah recognized the problem but faced a difficult decision. Military protocol demanded that she follow the designated leader's instructions. However, her navigation skills were better than Mike's, and she knew they were heading toward a dangerous cliff area that was off limits to training exercises. "Mike," she said quietly, "I think we need to check our position. These terrain features don't match our compass heading." Mike stopped and looked around nervously. The fog was getting thicker, and he was clearly losing confidence in his navigation abilities. "What do you think we should do?" he asked. Sarah could have taken control of the situation and led the team safely to the objective. Instead, she chose a different approach that demonstrated her understanding of team dynamics and leadership principles. "Let's stop for 2 minutes and both work the navigation problem independently," she suggested. "Then, we'll compare our solutions and make a decision together." This approach allowed Mike to maintain his leadership role while ensuring the team's safety. When they compared their navigation work, Mike realized his error and adjusted the route according to Sarah's calculations. They reached the rendezvous point only 10 minutes late, well within acceptable parameters. Instructor Torres, who had been monitoring their radio communications, made a note in Sarah's file about her ability to provide support without undermining team leadership structure. The underwater demolition training phase was particularly challenging for several candidates. Working with explosives while managing complex breathing apparatus and operating in zero visibility conditions required a level of mental calm that many people simply couldn't maintain. Sarah's swimming background gave her confidence in the water, but the psychological pressure of handling live explosives while underwater was entirely different. During her first demolition dive, she had to place charges on a mock ship hull while managing her breathing, monitoring her partner's safety, and calculating timing sequences. 20 feet underwater, with limited visibility and the knowledge that any mistake could be fatal, Sarah felt her heart rate increase and her breathing become shallow. For a moment, panic threatened to override her training. Then, she remembered her father's advice about hunting: slow down your breathing, focus on your target, and trust your training. She applied the same mental discipline underwater, completing the demolition sequence perfectly. Textbook execution, the diving instructor reported. Cool under pressure and technically precise. As training progressed, the remaining candidates developed into a tight-knit team. The shared experience of surviving Hell Week and enduring months of intensive training had created bonds that transcended gender, background, or previous military experience. However, not everyone in the broader SEAL community was happy about Sarah's success. During a joint training exercise with veteran operators, she encountered resistance that was more subtle but potentially more dangerous than anything she had faced during candidate training. Chief Petty Officer Mark Davidson had been a SEAL for 12 years and had strong opinions about women in combat roles. He wasn't openly hostile, but he found ways to question Sarah's readiness and suggest that standards might have been lowered to accommodate her. "I'm not saying she isn't tough," Davidson told other instructors during a break in training. "I'm just wondering if she'll hold up when bullets are flying and her teammates' lives depend on her decisions." The comments reached Sarah through unofficial channels, but she chose not to respond directly. Instead, she focused on performing at such a high level that doubts would be answered through actions rather than words. During a complex hostage rescue simulation, Sarah was assigned to a team led by Davidson. The scenario involved multiple moving parts: helicopter insertion, building assault, hostage extraction, and escape under enemy fire. Every aspect of the mission required precise coordination and split-second decision-making. Sarah was designated as the team's medic and secondary shooter. Her job was to provide medical support while maintaining tactical effectiveness during the assault phase. The scenario was designed to test how well candidates could manage multiple responsibilities under extreme stress. The simulation began with a helicopter insertion that went wrong when the pilot reported taking ground fire and having to abort the original landing zone. Davidson quickly adjusted the plan, moving the insertion point 3 blocks away from the target building. As the team moved through simulated urban terrain, they encountered unexpected resistance from role-playing enemy forces. During the firefight, one of Sarah's teammates was hit by simulation rounds and designated as seriously wounded. Sarah had to make an immediate decision: continue with the assault or stop to treat the wounded operator. Military doctrine emphasized mission completion, but SEAL culture demanded that no one be left behind. "Martinez, what's your call?" Davidson asked over the radio, testing her ability to make life-or-death decisions under pressure. Sarah quickly assessed the tactical situation and her teammates simulated injuries. Treating the wounded now would compromise the mission and endanger the hostages, she reported. I'm marking his position for extraction after we secure the objective. It was a difficult decision that prioritized the mission over immediate medical care, but it was the right tactical choice. Davidson nodded approvingly and continued the assault. Inside the target building, Sarah's medical training proved crucial when they encountered hostages who had been injured during the simulated captivity. She quickly triaged multiple casualties while maintaining security and preparing them for extraction. The entire simulation was completed successfully within the time parameters, with all hostages rescued and minimal simulated casualties among the SEAL team. During the after-action review, Davidson's evaluation was frank but positive. Martinez made the hard decisions correctly, he reported to the evaluation committee. She understands that being a SEAL sometimes means accepting risk to accomplish the mission. I would trust her to have my back in a real operation. The endorsement from a respected veteran carried significant weight among the instructor staff. Sarah had proven herself not just to the training cadre but to operational SEALs who would ultimately determine whether she was accepted into the community. As the training program neared its conclusion, Sarah reflected on how much she had changed since stepping off the bus at Coronado. The physical challenges had been brutal, but the mental evolution was more profound. She had learned to think like a SEAL, to prioritize mission success above personal comfort, and to make decisions that other people couldn't or wouldn't make. More importantly, she had earned the respect of her teammates and instructors through performance rather than politics. The men who had initially doubted her presence now sought her input on technical problems and trusted her judgment in tactical scenarios. During the final graduation ceremony, Sarah stood with 7 other candidates who had survived the complete SEAL training pipeline. Of the original 23 who had started the program, only 8 had earned the right to wear the SEAL trident. Instructor Torres addressed the graduating class with words that Sarah would remember for the rest of her career: "You are now part of a brotherhood that transcends politics, gender, race, and background. You have proven that you possess the physical skills, mental toughness, and moral courage required to serve as naval special warfare operators. The nation's most difficult missions will now be your responsibility." When Torres pinned the SEAL trident on Sarah's uniform, she felt the weight of history and responsibility settling on her shoulders. She was no longer the woman trying to prove she belonged. She was now a United States Navy SEAL, ready to serve wherever and whenever her country needed her. As she looked out at her family in the audience, Sarah saw tears of pride in her father's eyes and relief in her mother's face. They had supported her through years of preparation and months of training that tested every aspect of her character. But the graduation ceremony was just the beginning. Sarah knew that her real test would come during operational deployments, when the training scenarios became real missions with actual consequences. Some people would always question whether women belonged in special operations, regardless of her training performance. Sarah was ready for those challenges. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment, and she intended to honor the trust that had been placed in her. The SEAL teams had given her the chance to prove herself through performance rather than politics. Now it was time to justify that faith through service to her country and her teammates. Sarah Martinez was ready to show the world what an authentic Navy SEAL looked like, regardless of gender. The mission would always come first, just as it should for any warrior worthy of the trident.